It's made there in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Human rights organizations and Victims Association of September 28 Stadium Massacre in Guinea welcome the arrest of former Army Chief Claude PV.
We are very pleased with this news, and the victims feel more confident with the news. What we also ask the state to do is to speed up the process so that we can extradite him to Guinea and that justice can continue its work.
Senegal's General Directorate of Elections removes candidate sponsorship requirements ahead of November legislative polls. Côte d'Ivoire raises against time to trace Niger-based Ivorian journalist Serge Adou, who disappeared under mysterious circumstances.
He supposedly went to respond to this summons, and since then, she has had no news of him. Our council contacted the judicial authorities, who claim they have no information and that, as far as they know, he did not respond to the summons.
And the Gambian authorities speed up plans to ratify several international treaties. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. This edition begins in Guinea because human rights organizations and the Victims Association of the September 28, 2009 stadium incident have welcomed the arrest of Colonel Claude PV, the former army chief and one of the masterminds of the Conakry Grand Stadium massacre, was arrested by police in Liberia. PV, also known as Copland, was on July 31 found guilty of crimes against humanity and sentenced in absentia to life imprisonment by the Dixon Criminal Court. Abdullahi Hassan completes the story.
The Guinean state had issued an international arrest warrant against Claude PV after he escaped from a detention facility at the start of the intense trial that closed in July. Despite being on the run, PV was charged and sentenced in absentia. The victims' associations, who were worried about the safety of the victims, especially those who testified during the trial, described the arrest of the former minister as a relief. Asmao Jallo is president of the association.
We are very pleased with this news, and the victims feel more confident with the news. What we also ask the state to do is to speed up the process so that we can extradite him to Guinea and that justice can continue its work.
Meanwhile, the Guinean Human Rights Organization, which is a civil party in the trial of the September 28, 2009 massacre in which Claude PV was served a life prison sentence, also welcomes his arrest. Alseni Sal is one of the organization's leaders.
We
learned with great enthusiasm this information of the arrest of Colonel Claude PV. It was a very good thing because his escape in the middle of the trial had caused a lot of worry and anxiety among the victims, but also among some important actors in the trial. We think that as a person who was convicted in this case, his place is in prison.
The Guinean ministers of Justice and Foreign Affairs on Wednesday contacted the Liberian authorities to request the extradition of Colonel Claude PV, former Minister of Presidential Security under Captain Musa Dadis Camara's regime.
Abdullahi Hassan with that report. Away from Guinea, the Gambia has yet to ratify nor sign important treaties of the African Union. Some of the said treaties include the African Charter on Maritime Security and Safety and Development in Africa, Protocol of the Statute of the African Court of Justice and Human Rights, African Union of Cross-Border Cooperation, and a Protocol on Combating Terrorism, among others. The disclosure by the Gambian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mamadou Tangara, before the National Assembly comes amid a call for the relevant ministries to fast-track the needed process to ratify and sign these important treaties. Here is an excerpt of Foreign Minister Tangara doing his presentation.
Some important treaties have neither been signed nor ratified by the Gambia, and they are the following. Statute on the Pan-African Intellectual Property Organization, African Union Treaty on the Establishment of the African Medicines Agency, Lome Charter, African Charter on Maritime Security, Safety and Development in Africa, Protocol on amendment to the Protocol of the Statute of the African Court of Justice and Human Rights. African Union Convention on Cross-Border Cooperation. Protocol to the establishment of the African Monetary Fund. Additional protocol to the OAU General Convention on General Privileges and Immunities. Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the rights of older persons. Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the rights of persons with disabilities. The following are also treaties signed but not ratified by the Gambia. Protocol to the treaty establishing the African Economic Community relating to free movement of persons, right of residence, right of establishment, the African Charter on the Values and Principles of Public Service and Administration, the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection, Protocol to the OAU Convention on the Prevention and Combating of Terrorism.
Mamadou Tangara is the Gambia Minister of Foreign Affairs. Meanwhile, Global Shield has held its first in-country workshop in Banjul, the Gambian capital. This comes after the government requested financial assistance from the Disaster Risk Management Organization. WADR's Sankula Janko tells us more.
In alignment with its commitment to advancing climate resilience, the Gambia has formally requested support from the Global Shield to establish pre-arranged and trigger-based financing mechanisms directly linked to climate change adaptation efforts. This initiative will be driven by a country-led inclusive process that engages all relevant stakeholders to identify needs, set priorities, and determine areas where support is most needed. Following years of negotiation, Global Shield held its first activity in the Gambia with a view to assisting the country mitigate its disaster problems. Dr. Astrid Zwick is the co-director of Global Shield Secretariat.
With pre-arranged financing, we can provide quicker, more effective support to help people recover and rebuild, ensuring that no community has been left behind.
Meanwhile, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Disaster Management Agency of the Gambia, Senator Dahaba, says the Gambia is taking steps to minimize disasters.
The Gambia is one of the first countries to have taken up a transformative initiative to protect its people by pursuing disaster risk financing. Ratifying the Establishment Treaty in May 2016, as well as being the first country to pioneer the Africa Disaster Risk Financing Initiative, goes to confirm this.
The Global Shield Against Climate Risk, launched at the COP27 by the Vulnerable 20 V20 Group and the Group of 7 G7, aims to enhance protection for climate vulnerable economies and communities by providing and facilitating appropriate pre-arranged climate and disaster risk financing. For Newslink West African Democrats Radio, I'm Sankula Janko reporting from Banjul.
Ahead of the legislative elections here in Senegal, the General Directorate of Elections has announced the elimination of candidate sponsorship requirements. This decision follows a recent ruling by the Constitutional Council last Friday regarding sponsorships for the upcoming election on November 17. With this change, candidates can now participate in the elections without needing to collect a specified number of sponsorships, specifying the process of running for legislative seats. However, other regulations remain in place, including the requirement for a financial deposit and the use of the electoral register from the previous election. Additionally, the distribution of seats based on the departmental majority vote will remain unchanged. Meanwhile, Senegal and Mauritania are intensifying their collaboration in the Navy field. It is in this context that the Chief of Staff of the Mauritanian Navy paid a visit to Senegal yesterday, Wednesday. This announcement was made by Dakar, the Directorate of Public Relations of the Senegalese Armed Forces. A meeting between the Senegalese and Mauritanian navies made it possible to revisit and strengthen security cooperation between the two countries.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's now take you to Cote d'Ivoire, where it has been nearly 3 weeks since Ivorian journalist Serge Adou, based in Niger, went missing under unclear circumstances. Adu, who worked for Kana 3 in Niamey, reportedly responded to a summons from the Nigerian Judicial Police on September 1. Since then, his whereabouts have remained unknown to his family and friends. Here is Albin Ade, reports voiced by Oge Oberika.
Following the disappearance of journalist Serge Adu in Niger, the Ivorian government has taken up the matter. Government spokesperson Minister Amadou Coulibaly provided an update on the situation.
He reportedly received a call from the Judicial Police inviting him to respond to summons. This information came from Nanod Consul, not his wife. She did not see the summons herself. She only relayed what her husband had mentioned. He supposedly went to respond to this summons, and since then, she has had no news of him. Our consul contacted the judicial authorities, who claimed they have no information and that as far as they know, he did not respond to the summons. The Burkinabe ambassador, who covers Niger, has also contacted the transitional authorities, who similarly state they have no information.
Coulibaly also stated that the government intends to formally engage the Nigerian ambassador in Côte d'Ivoire.
We're continuing our investigations. We will formally engage the ambassador of Niger in Côte d'Ivoire to ascertain the exact situation of our colleague. What I can assure you is that Côte d'Ivoire cares deeply about each and every one of its sons and daughters. Therefore, we will not abandon him.
Additionally, the National Union of Journalists of Côte d'Ivoire and the Union of Journalists of the Free African Press have requested clarification from the Nigerian authorities regarding Serge Adu's arrest. So far, Nigerian authorities have not communicated any new information about the journalist's disappearance.
Abidjan's correspondent Albin Ade's report voiced by Oge Oberika. In Sierra Leone, a magistrate has denied bail for several individuals accused of unlawfully importing bomb-making materials into the country, thus by the defense citing ill health. The accused include two 65-year-old Lebanese nationals and a Sierra Leonean. Echiatisu completes the story.
The accused are also facing a charge on importing arms manufacturing materials without a valid license between October and November 2023. Additional charges include the unlawful possession of arms manufacturing materials, aiding in the importation and stockpiling of bomb-making materials and prohibited drugs, and obstructing justice. Police reports allege that one accused person provided funds to another between November 2023 and July 2024 for the illegal transportation of chemical weapons. The accused allegedly transported prohibited drugs from Queen Elizabeth II Quay to a location in Freetown and fabricated evidence to obstruct justice. During a recent court session, the defense requested bail, citing the accused's ill health and presenting medical reports. However, Magistrate Bangura directed that the accused receive medical care at the Correctional Facilities Hospital instead of granting bail. The case has been adjourned to September 25, 2024.
Echiatisu fight that report. Over to Ghana, where the mining licenses of FGR Bogoso Pritia Mining Limited have been terminated by the Ghanaian government, as announced by Minister of Lands and Natural Resources Samuel Abu Junapor on September 18. This decision followed recommendations from the Minerals Commission and the Attorney General after thorough reviews and consultations with stakeholders. McDonough Kinson is chairperson, Senior Staff Association of the FGR Bogoso Pritia Mines.
From day one, our position has never changed. Our position has been one, that the Bogoso Pritia mine needs a credible investor, somebody who would inject capital into the operations to make it more sustainable and more viable. The decision taken by the minister today goes to confirm our concerns and our issues which we've raised. So we are super excited. The people of Bogoso Pritia, the whole town is elated. Everybody is happy with just the termination of the leases of the Bogoso Pritia mine. So workers are excited and are happy. And we believe that this is a new breath for the operations and the community at large.
McDonough Kitson is Chairman, Senior Staff Association of the FGR Bogoso Pritia Mines in Ghana. Away from Ghana, every year on September 20, volunteers and partners worldwide come together to raise awareness about global waste management and the need to address the growing menace of waste pollution. From Abuja, WADR's Usma Umar reports about this situation.
Nigeria generates over 2 million tons of waste annually, with plastic accounting for 50% of total waste generated. To tackle this issue, stakeholders suggest providing adequate equipment to waste pickers. Salisu Yerima is the president of Waste Pickers Association of Nigeria, WAPAN, while Chiranjibi Tiwari is the climate change manager at UNICEF Nigeria, and they both say collective action is crucial to addressing the problem.
Most of these waste pickers that you are seeing, they are informal. So we want to formalize them. That is why WAPAN exists. This is just a beginning with the support of the UNICEF.
Once the segregation is done, it is about really collecting those plastic waste and transporting to a place where that waste can be processed properly or recycled by the manufacturer of plastic goods and items. That's how it works. The entire cycle we have to look at: the collection, transportation, processing, and reuse or recycle. That entire chain we have to look at it.
On her part, Mercy Ugu, Deputy Director of Planning, Research and Statistics at the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, highlights the Commission's role in helping to combat plastic waste.
FCCPC is an enabler. We are actually not the one to be there, but we are bringing these stakeholders together, enabling them to put this on ground to make sure that our environment is protected, is sustained.
Experts agree that recycling and reusing waste benefits the environment by decreasing the need to extract resources while lowering contamination risks. By implementing effective waste collection and recycling systems, promoting sustainable practices and education, and encouraging businesses to adopt eco-friendly practices, Nigeria can make significant strides in combating waste pollution. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of the top stories. Human rights organizations and Victims Association of September 28 Sidom massacre in Guinea welcomed the arrest of former Army Chief Claude Pv. Senegal's General Directorate of Elections removes candidate sponsorship requirements ahead of November legislative polls. Côte d'Ivoire races against time to trace Niger-based Ivorian journalist Serge Adou, who disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Still ahead, Africa to receive 500,000 vaccine doses for Mpox by end of the year. We do have the press review, guest interview, and the sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thanks for being with us. As a reminder, we're streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Africa is set to receive 500 doses of Mpox vaccines by the end of this year, 2024. On Wednesday, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, and Bavarian Nordic, the manufacturer of the Mpox vaccine, signed an agreement to ensure the supply of these doses to the continent. More details of Imo Edit.
These 500,000 doses of the Mpox vaccines will be allocated to African countries affected by the Mpox epidemic. The Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, remains the epicenter of the disease, but 14 other countries on the continent are also severely impacted. This agreement to supply 500,000 doses of the Mpox vaccines in 2024 will bolster the fight against the disease. Additionally, the Global Fund, a public-private partnership that combats diseases like malaria, announced it will provide $9.5 million to the DRC, the epicenter of Mpox. These funds will assist the DRC's health authorities in intensifying their emergency response in the most affected regions. As of the end of August, the DRC had recorded nearly 22,000 cases and 700 deaths since the resurgence of the disease in January. The Africa CDC, the African Union's Disease Control Center, has implemented a response plan for the epidemic and will support the most affected countries on the continent in combating Mpox.
Imo Edit reporting there.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
For a review of the local dailies, let's join Nada Titi in the Ghanaian capital, Accra.
Welcome to the newspaper review segment. On the front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper, voters register brouhaha, table audit demand at IPAC. That's according to Codeo. Other stories here: high medication costs makes cancer death sentence, according to Dr. Kome. And economy grows 6.9% for second quarter. Real GDP value is now 45.21 billion Ghana cedis. The Daily Statesman front page: economy records fastest growth in 5 years. Also here, Akufo-Addo's record in road sector unmatched. That's according to the Roads and Highways Minister, Asenso Boakye. The Chronicle newspaper: I'll install 50,000 anti-crime cameras across Ghana. This is according to the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, is also the flag bearer of the NPP. Other stories here: CBG denies sale of the bank. Now to the Daily Post newspaper front page: down memory lane, engage independent body to audit register. And the paper is making reference to the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Jean Mensah, when she once was the head of the IEA, which had called for an audit of the voters register. And now she heads the Electoral Commission, and the commission is opposed to an independent audit of the register. Also here on the front page of the Daily Post newspaper: the voter register is bloated. That's according to Dr. Arthur Kennedy. The Daily Analyst front page: credit worthiness of borrowers. Monthly enquiries by financial institutions increased by 46.5%, and that is from the credit reference bureaus. And also here, Ghana and Spain must enhance investment partnerships. The Supreme newspaper, it says here, Ghana takes bold steps in digital education with AI-powered skills bank. The New Crusading Guide newspaper front page: EC promises credible and robust voters register, and digitalization key to Ghana's development. We'll end with the Daily Guide newspaper front page: 2024 elections, Bawumia pushes for ideas, not insults. Final story here: Minister opens 16 public employment centers. That'll be it for what the dailies are reporting today. It's back to you.
Thank you, Nadi Titi, for the press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, ahead of the legislative elections here in Senegal, the General Director of Elections has announced the elimination of candidate sponsorship requirements. And this decision follows a recent ruling by the Constitutional Council last Friday regarding sponsorships for the upcoming election scheduled for November 17. Our guest this afternoon is Alhaj Sam, an independent political observer who speaks about this situation.
Sponsorship was something that was added to the election, and everybody has seen that it was a necessity. Knowing that, in Senegal, in terms of politics, we have a number of political parties, and the number of political parties are so important that if we don't filter the people that are running for the election, this will be a problem. An amount of money. You saw in Senegal, when we want to organize an election, we need at least 10 billion CFA. It's a lot of money. Regarding that, it was not even in the initial budget. So now we are talking about a snap election, and when we don't have time, I understand that we remove that, but I don't think that it will be a good situation for Senegal.
All right, so this is a vital criteria for elections in Senegal, as you've stated. So what could be some disadvantages of this decision, if there are any, on the electoral process in the country?
Okay, democracy is something, and when we say Senegal, we say democracy. It is a democratic country, but democracy should not remove all our value of having peaceful election, having organized election. The main, I think, impact will be the number of candidates that will be very, very large. And secondly, the amount of money for organizing the election. Economically, we don't have that money. We will even need to touch the reserve of precaution in the budget in order to fund the election, because it was not planned at the beginning. And also, we are also fearing some problem of violence and others, because when it is not organized, it is where you have all these problems. I'm not very pessimist, but I think that this decision may have some negative impact in the country.
What do you think prompted this decision by the Constitutional Council and the General Directorate of Election?
This decision, I think, we couldn't do something else in the fact that when you decide to cancel the assembly and go to an anticipated election, you cannot respect all the rules of election. We don't have time. We don't have the organization. And you see, election is organized by the administrative bodies in the region. And there are many aspects that come, not only legal, but in terms of organization, the regions, the administration in the region, the organization in the region. There are a lot of things that will be taken into account. And my only fear is the number of candidates and the amount of money that will be put in that snap election, and maybe some violence that cannot be controlled.
Alhaj Sam is an independent political observer. Now for the latest in the world of sports, here is Sankule Janko.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Defending champions Senegal are on course for qualification in the Under-20 after a convincing 2-0 win against Mali in the West African Football Union WAFU A Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. The reigning champions defeated their fellow West Africans at the Samuel K. Doe Sports Complex in Monrovia. Senegal is aiming to secure qualification from the group that includes neighbors Gambia and Mauritania. Elsewhere, Guinea's national Under-20 male football team defeated Guinea-Bissau 3-1 on Wednesday in the WAFU Under-20 qualifiers. This is the Silly Juniors' first win of the campaign, following their goalless draw against Sierra Leone in their opening campaign last Sunday. The win has placed Guinea top of their group with 4 points after 2 matches. Meanwhile, in the same group, Sierra Leone beat Liberia 3-1 in WAFU B Under-20 qualifiers to strengthen their chances of qualification to CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations. A brace from Portugal-based Momo Ibrahim Kamara and Santigi Fona were enough to earn Sierra Leone the maximum points. Sierra Leone jointly topped their group with Guinea with 4 points after 2 matches. The WAFU tournament is expected to last from 15 to 30 September 2024. The 2 finalists of each group will secure qualification in the 2025 CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and to Maudo Ju for the technical support. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is WADR's environment program, Enviroscope, to be followed at the top of the hour of 1 p.m. by the second edition of our comprehensive news package in French, Info chez vous with Demba Am Das Alpha Abubakar. I am Augustine Kali. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink.